morning. This is the Good Morning Education Show. My name is Rotimi Itai, and it's so exciting and also a great privilege to be here with you live on the show. And we are always excited anytime we have the opportunity to come across the airwaves, across to you, streaming from Lagos, Nigeria, West Africa to the entire world. And the Good Morning Education Show has always been a great experience for us, and I'm sure also for you, because we always have the opportunity to rub minds together. Always have the opportunity to learn together, to share together. And as I'm looking at it for all the past few months, we're also growing together. And we always, from time to time, have expert, strong voices in our sector within and around the world of education who bring flavor to the show. And we won't be having a great experience without them. And of course, as usual, we always start by welcoming them to the show, and then we transition into looking at some elements of basic headline news and updates around the world of education and the things that affect us as well as individuals and practitioners. And then we'll take a step further to listen to your comments, share with you on the topic, and sometimes treat some questions that you might have. And from there on, also, we take conversations of the day. And then, of course, we have a great day. And then we give you a rollout outro of how we wish you have a great day. It's always a great morning on the Good Morning Education Show. And already I have Safety Chick in the building, and it's time to welcome her as she joins us on the show. Good morning, Safety Chick. How are you today?
Good morning, Mr. RTB. Good morning to everyone listening to us this morning. I'm doing very well. I'm excited about the new week. I'm just excited about the rest of 2020 because 2020 has been a whole decade. It's just been interesting on all grounds. I'm just excited.
I saw your post and I saw your picture as well, and I knew that, yeah, this excitement is something big, right? And and even though you don't care to share some of those excitements with me any longer, I would say that maybe
Very
I might start my protest hashtag and
and silence.
you picked the word. I did not say anything. I don't say. So today we're going to be having a great time, and I just want us to recognize our audience, our ever supportive tribe, who always log on in the morning and also stay tuned to us. In fact, I got a message from one of us last week, and that was the time we were not able to. I think that was on Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday, where we couldn't yeah. And the person said, my day is incomplete without the Good Morning Education Show. And that was quite touching. And sometimes you don't know what you got until it's dropped, is missing, or it's lost. So let's welcome Favor L. Idogun to the show this morning. Good morning, Favor. And of course, because it's been a long time, I'm ringing the bell of blessed favor. And of course, drive right with King T. Morning to you, our ever supportive tribe. And we're going to be having a great conversation today. I think we should have some protests. What do you think?
What do you want to
Yeah,
protest about?
I got you. I got you. What do you want to protest about? I want to protest about you. I want to tell the world how
That
you've
what happened?
abandoned me.
No, no.
Okay, so now I'm the one protesting. You already now protesting. How can protesting me protesting? So but then I think
I'm protesting.
in the spirit of protest, because I'm of the opinion that we must be observant, we must be conscious, we must learn, or else we'll just be passers by, spectators without having effect. Um, and today we'll be talking about something. It might be a protest of some sort, but it's not really a protest, but is a response to the spirit of correctness. It's a response to the spirit of newness, of birthing things and doing things the right way. And one of the things that I noticed as we were able to capture the conversation for the week is that we needed to start speaking along some serious, definite lines that people out there can also understand that, even taking into picture, cognizance, education as a whole, there are many things we need to speak up for. There are many things we need to begin to deliberate on. There are many things we need to consult on so that the overall sector is also going to be a beneficiary of the change that we are seeing as well in the society. And many times I've heard people talk about education reforms. I've heard many people talk about so many conversations around developing education, but sometimes they speak about this with a lot of blind spot. They speak about this with a lot of ignorance as well. They speak about this also with a lot of passion, with no direction and clarity. And so today, we will kickstart a journey that will end throughout the week, or that will last throughout the week. I will be speaking about specific areas. I'm sure, Safety Chick, you've seen the reel of our schedule for the week. And if you notice, we're talking about that, okay, it's time for us, for example, today, we're talking about raising standards for regulators. Tomorrow, we'll be taking it a step further. I'll be talking about raising standards, across different divides. So we'll raise standards for teachers, we'll raise standards for students, we'll rescue our, our, our graduates, and eventually we'll end the week with raising standards for practitioners and administrators. And I believe that as we take this journey, we'll begin to open up a lot of areas that needs visitation, that needs concentration, that needs some level of direction, that needs some level of intervention. And I believe that at the end of the day, we'll all be great and better for it. So without wasting much time, I
Okay.
think the best thing for us to do is to just let's even explore some topics. Normally we would have the headlines, but today
Are
we're
we
just going to
taking
go
the
straight. You said?
Okay. I was just about to ask that.
Yes. So we're not going to have headlines in form of videos. What we're just going to do is we're going to look at it in terms of um, topics, headlines across.
Okay.
And yeah, of course, you know that one of the things that we had last week was schools are meant to totally resume, that all schools. And in fact, I have a conversation that I might start with that. But let's look at the some of the headlines
So
and let's talk
I
about.
saw an information. I saw an information yesterday. Um, I can't remember exactly now if it was on Facebook that I saw it, but I saw it on social media, and the person was giving a report that a school has been shut down because 100 and something students and staff have been affected with COVID, and it's a school here in Nigeria. I'm just trying to remember all the details I read yesterday. And basically, the person was calling on everyone not to relax. And you see, that's one of the concerns I have had. The fact that people think life has returned to normal. Life has returned to normal, but not totally. It has returned to normal with additions. It has returned to normal with new behaviors, new precautions. And so, if we are returning to life without taking the precautions, it's a recipe for disaster. If you observe, a lot of people are no more doing social distancing. Some are not even wearing their mask. I see people at protest grounds without masks. Even if you're not going to use mask, at least use face shield now. Just go the extra mile. The fact that we are not having it bad as it has been in other countries is not enough reason for us to let down our guard, because it is when we let our guard that things can go really, really wrong. So I'm talking about this now just to remind all school owners, as we are going back to school, as we are resuming fully. Just remember that it's not yet over. Ensure that compliance happens. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago where I spoke to the educators on CME about how to ensure compliance. As much as we're ensuring compliance, you need the school owners. They need to also understand that monitoring cannot be done by only you. you have to get people, get more hands. So make the students feel responsible, make the teachers feel responsible, make the non-teaching staff feel responsible, so that it's not only management that will be doing all the monitoring. No, and you've got to identify why are people not complying with the rules. If why are they not complying, then you are able to put measures to ensure that they're able to comply, and come up with beautiful ways that would keep on reminding the children, posters, catchy slogans, the game that myself and Naija keep playing. Those are just great ways to keep reminding, because the truth is, we can't get tired of saying it over and over again. We did Global Day of Hand Washing some days ago. How many people are still washing their hands as they should? How many? So it's just a worrying concern to me.
All right. And as you were mentioning your concern, as you were talking about the kids game, and Titi just popped up, just living up to the name as well. So Titi, good morning. You're the true
Good,
daughter of your father.
good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's a new week. It's a fantastic week. Good morning to everyone out there. Good morning, Rotimi. Good morning, Safe Teaching. I'm excited. I'm happy. As always, anyway. Hello, everyone.
I
Good
don't
morning,
trust you
my
guys any longer.
welcome.
This you're excited, and you said it. Safety chick said it, and I know you're always excited, but I'm smelling something. I'm smelling something. Something.
Let me tell
Smelling
you,
You guys used to drop things like that. Just drop it like that, little by little.
Rotimi, let me
And
tell
Titi,
you.
I've not done auditing for your account lately, so I really need to, brace up. I need to come for an internal audit. What I mean.
Rotimi, let me tell you a secret. I'm one of those people, I don't know if you people listen to Dr. Cindy Trim. I speak to my week. So you
Mm,
typically see me excited at the beginning of the week. I'm excited. I'm already, kind of speaking into my week that this is going to be a fantastic week. And truly, truly, truly,
fantastic.
that's how it ends up being. So I'm starting this week saying, I'm expecting Rotimi, I'm expecting the alerts. I don't know where they're going to come from, but I'm just excited.
Receive it, receive it,
Yes,
receive
so
it. Catch it, catch it. Safety chick, receive your own too. This is your collaboration laughter. Hey, God is watching you guys. You are laughing in a collaborative style. All right. So, so we're speaking about raising standards for regulators, and
did you talk about the headlines? I don't know if I
yeah, we're
missed.
still talking about. I just wanted to bring you up to speed of what we've spoken so far on.
Okay.
Yeah, so we said let's quickly address the headlines, but this time around the headlines we're not watching anything. We're just
Okay.
spending time to just look at it. For example, NECO has postponed their computer exams because of the protest that is going on currently. And then there are other conversations. So Ugochi was still, I think Ugochi was rounding off with our conversation as to people not being relaxed about the COVID 19 rules, because a lot of people might not be hearing that, oh, this is happening. And so the tendency is there for people to reduce vigilance, or try to think about it and say, oh, COVID 19, a lot of things have passed, let's go back to normal. And so she was just kind of giving us a word of caution and advice that we should not let down our guard.
Yeah. I think one of the major headlines from last week is I think that happened like on Friday. The boarding school in Lekki that had they said according to the sometimes you don't know what's fake news, what's real news. Had a 181 of their students and teachers test positive for COVID. Well, like I would say, the news did not.
Okay.
I don't know. Go to did you see the headlines? I'm trying to even bring it. Check.
That's what I was sharing about. I didn't even remember that it was in Lekki, but I heard what I saw yesterday online was that it was here in Lagos that was infected. Yes, that's what I was talking about.
Oh no, it was a board.
Crazy.
The one I saw was very specific, saying it was a boarding school in Lekki, and they're currently all under quarantine.
Hello, Titi, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. You can't hear me?
I think the audio was a bit low.
Yes, I can hear her.
Okay, so
Okay.
you were saying that there was a school in Lekki.
A boarding school,
Yes.
was a boarding school in Lekki, and they were currently saying that all of them were being quarantined. I think, just to reiterate on some of the things that we say are important. So my first question was, oh, how long had this school been in process? How long had they been how long had it been since they resumed? Did they do the staggered did they do the staggered resumption? Did they have a dedicated place for, the truth is that depending on what they
Resumption.
did there, it will determine the level of impact that it will have on all the people. Because if you have done the staggered resumption, then it means that you can kind of trace where the how will I say, the group that will have the issue. And if you have done the, isolating them and minimizing their contact from day to day till in my own mind you pass that period where you know that everything is fine, like 2 or 3 weeks after everyone has resumed, then you know that okay, the main whatever has passed. And then when you know they're also limiting people that are coming and going into the premises. So I think for me, some schools have done it, much better than others. I think the important thing continues to be to sustain it for, a longer time. I've been looking at schools that have resumed and seeing the pictures of their children. Most of the kids are not wearing masks. Most of the teachers are wearing chin masks, so to speak. Which just even shows that barely
Mm-hmm.
3-4 weeks into it, it's something that's really tough. It's something that is really tough. And I know that most people are not testing. So I think what's important for schools is try and continue, to maintain, as long as you have people constantly going and coming, it increases the risk. So try and, continue to implement as much of this as you can. It's not easy. It's easier said than done, but you just need to to be assured that we are safely past, the high infection place or
If you look,
place.
if yeah, if you look at the boarding dynamics, most boarding schools won't be doing staggered staggered boarding experience. Do you understand? It's the staggered resumption or the staggered attendance would be for days to students. So most of the burning students, from the feedback I've gotten, it's been addressed from because they're not going in and out. They resumed collectively. They assessed them at the point of resumption. They did a lot of stuff. Now, if it's a mixed kind of reality of boarding and day, and then we now begin to look at it, is it from those who came in from the day aspect of the school, and then, of course, those in the body, because it's a communal living, there's a tendency for a spread. Another factor is the conspiracy theory that if you have malaria, you're automatically also being considered as having COVID. So, what if, for example, it's been raining? Of course, immunity gets affected, flu, and then if everybody's sneezing, coughing, or stuff like that, and everybody just says, you know what, these schools have gotten COVID infection. So we have to be very careful because really, we might have some conspiracy theory in this as well.
I think for me, what I would I hear all the conspiracy theorists. What I would always say is, even as we hear the news, let's remember most people recover from COVID. I think that's, when people start all this, I always start by reminding them that most people recover from COVID. And
It's
in
not totally
Africa,
a sentence.
yes. So, and in Africa, more than
Yes.
anything, we've had lower than usual incidents of death than the world. So that's also comforting. And even as we've entered, all the times has passed, the numbers have continued to drop. So I think it's really more of the containment than anything. That once your school has is how to contain it, how to wait it out while the children recover. And remember that most children, Even the report that went out, most of them they said most of them, apart from the initial incident, the first person, most of them were asymptomatic. So which is what you typically find with the children. Most people are asymptomatic. Within a week or two, they're all better. The people that have issues
That,
continue to be us, we agbalagbas,
yeah.
who who
With
by this
underlying health conditions.
who have underlying health conditions. Some of them we've not discovered. That's the problem. So
So
I
the
think
point is
That's
now
the thing.
underlying condition, right? We need to also ask questions. Some people, their underlying health condition is not just diabetes, something like high blood pressure no longer. The protest itself um, can create underlying health condition. Disappointment in government. Seriously, we all have underlying. I don't want to use the word health condition. We all have underlying conditions. But then,
Anyway, Rotimi, let me say some other good news. We can leave COVID behind. I think I was excited to see the Nigerian that was elected for as one of the finalists for, I don't know if you saw it, as one of the finalists for uh, top teacher, Sukomi Okwefa. Sorry, I was trying to look for the news. I thought that was really good. We have a Nigerian teacher based in Abuja. That
yeah.
was so let's
Yeah, we
not
had
only say,
that last week. We mentioned that last week.
oh, I don't
Yes,
recall.
we
Okay,
mentioned that.
let's get into today's topic.
You're saying okay, like Eben is always saying okay. If you watch his videos, yeah, okay. All right. Now I'm saying all right. Okay. All right. So we're having a conversation about raising standards for regulators. And in the spirit of the season, we've been talking about this since last week that there might be need for us to focus on areas that need some level of attention, especially as education is concerned. We might be speaking about things and speaking to the air because then it helps us to be a little bit more proactive, a little bit more punchy, as it were. And so today we'll be speaking about raising standards for regulators. Standards. I recall I was having an interview with some TV station, and a lot of people have always been saying this. And I would like to remind us here. I'm sure you probably also have heard me say it before. When they say that the standard of education has fallen or is falling or is whatever. And normally I'm always of the opinion that, well, let's look at it, that standards don't naturally fall. People do not measure up to standards. You can raise standards, but standards don't fall. That's why they're called standards. So I would like us to use that kind of concept to talk about it today. I believe our regulators need to be pulled up or called aside, and really the tempo at which we're looking at transforming education, we cannot but bring them into the equation. It's easy for us to always say teacher development, teacher supply, teacher quality, teacher this, teacher that, and teachers have always been thrown under the bus. But one major issue that we need to face today in the evolving way education is going is the is the board. So I hope that the conversation today will be able to touch light or spread on this major concern, how we need to talk about raising standards for regulators. The standards for regulators seems to be missing or absent, seems to be that are not even being measured at all. While we can measure and say there's a dichotomy between the private and the public, while we're even measuring the grades within the private, grade A, grade B, grade C, grade D, regulators, it's time for them to be called to question. So I'll start by inviting Titi, and then I'll move to Safety Chick as we explore this conversation. So Titi, over to you. Let's talk about raising standards for regulators.
Rotimi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I can.
Okay. For me, one of the major things that I feel for regulators, government, that is just too key. And I feel that if we get that right in Nigeria, then we'll begin to see major change. And that thing for me is transparency. I want a situation where anything that you need to know about the sector is online. All the schools that have registered in the state, you can just, so, there's a bit of self-regulation that comes in from that transparency. You see it where they are spending the money. If they are doing rehabilitation of schools, you can see everything out there. What are the requirements for your school? What Everything is out there, and even the process of getting that thing as well is out there online, so that people can, there's not all this bureaucracy. There isn't all this I need to set somebody. There is, and same thing with results. When I did common entrance, it was not a hidden thing. You knew where to go and check your results. You could see it, so that even the school, because it also helps to regulate schools. I don't need to start wondering, is this school good? Is it not school? I just go to a place where I can check their results and say, this school that is paying this amount of money and this one is see the results. Do you understand? Same thing for SSC, same thing for everything is just more transparent.
Aggregated results,
And
not just results.
do you understand? So that you can go,
Yeah,
you just
Titi.
see a list of schools, and then if you can click it, you can see the total of this school had their pass percentage, or number of A's, number of B's, number of C's. That level of transparency in regulation, I feel, is really what will drive the change. Same thing in terms of having a customer feedback, whereby you can go online as well, and you have a complaint, so they have this thing, and there's a channel to feeding and resolving. I just feel that that's one of the main things that we need to start, and I'm hoping that with what has happened, with COVID, with what has happened with NSAS, it will drive us, there to where there's just so much transparency in government. When they want to make decisions, they announce where they're going to have consultative session, so anybody can go there, listen, be part of it, contribute. Nothing is always in secret and shrouded in I don't know. Let me stop there.
I understand what you're saying, but I need to just ask you, when you were talking about the results, being able to see transparency, I believe that what you actually what you are referring to, openly pasted and all that. But aggregated result gives you opportunity to be able to see everybody that performed in the state, for example, across their schools as well. So the performance is not just something that we know that, okay, result came out, but then you're able to benchmark it as well. Is that not what you're trying to say?
Yes, exactly. And even they will do infographic.
Fantastic. And I would like us to.
I would say even they will do a bit of analysis of, analysis of the results, so that people can also see, clearly, easily.
I totally agree with you. Let me just even come from there.
Go ahead. Wow, safety chick, are you still there? Rotimi, are you still there?
Riding on the back of what you just said.
Hello, are you there?
Another reason why I strongly believe that transparency is very important. Is very important for regulation and for regulators is because, yes, can you all hear me? I've been speaking. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can.
Mr. Deusi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Okay. I can hear you all. I don't know why
We
you
can
can't
hear you.
hear me.
We can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, I've
We can
actually
hear
been
you.
here.
Go
I
ahead.
was making a contribution to what you were saying. Okay, so I was saying that riding on the back of
Yes, you're talking about.
what you talked about transparency and making things clear is the fact that if we have that where updated information on what is expected in terms of owning a school, running a school, it is all clear and stated somewhere. It makes it easy for people to, they are coming from certain regulatory agencies, because people are clear, because it is everybody knows where the information is stated on the website or on the platform where that information is shared. It's easy for you to know that, okay, this person is just trying to take advantage of you, right? So that's another advantage of having that transparency, so that people really know. It's not a case of where sometimes information on websites or on platforms are outdated, and so when regulators ask you to do something, you are not seeing the correlation with what they're saying and what is on the platforms. So it's really important that updated information must be shared, and it must be widespread, so that everybody knows what is expected of them. And it makes them, it also helps to protect school owners from unnecessary bills, because sometimes we hear cases where people show up asking you to pay for this, pay for that, and you are not, you are like, and for example, that this is not what you need right now. Yes, so I just thought to add that for the transparency aspect of things. Monitoring is done, because
All
it's,
right.
it's one
And
thing
why?
to have the regulations in place, and it's another thing for people to be complying in their various areas. So that means these agencies also need support, because I keep finding that we do not have enough manpower to do thorough monitoring. So our system for measuring, monitoring, and compliance has to be I'm done. Can you still hear
Okay.
me?
Yes, I think your network is bad. Okay, so while Safety Chick was talking, we had KK walking gently, majestically, executively to the building.
Very
KK, good
gentle. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Hi, Titi.
KK, you went
Good
to protest.
morning.
I saw you protest,
We have to make our voices heard for something. We just have to.
and you snubbed me. You did not say anything to me.
No, we were, we
Why?
were, we were there. We have to keep. We have to focus.
KK, God forgive you. All right, so we're speaking about raising standards for regulators. And if you just joined us, this is the Good Morning Education Show. We're streaming from Lagos, Nigeria, West Africa to Africa and the entire world. And we're speaking about raising standards for regulators. And it's a very important topic. And Titi started by opening up the conversation of transparency, demand for analysis and aggregated results, infographics, and all those things. And of course, Mugochi also buttressed that point as well, saying that it's important for us to focus on data, but also that the regulators need some level of support, especially in the place of monitoring, that there might not be enough manpower. And of course, KK is here to trash the conversation and bring fire and bring the roof down. So before I ask KK, there's something I needed to say from what Ugochi mentioned. And the truth about it is that there's information about how to start a school and all those things. Those things are not hidden fact. The truth about it is that if you meet, or you go to the ministries or you go to the state education board and the likes, the information is there. And really, truth be told, they are good when it comes to that. So nobody should take it away from them. What we might be talking about and what we might need to be advocating for is the ease of registration. the ease at which you are able to get that information, at which you are able to start the process of registering your school, at the point of also getting your school approved. The ease is the challenge. So information exists. In fact, many years ago, if you compare let me use Lagos State, for example, the Ministry of Education in Lagos, for example, many years ago and some few years ago, up till today, there's a big time difference. They are more efficient and more effective. However, we need to bring a standard. They need to raise the quality and the standard of the ease of registration, of the ease of accreditation, of the ease of approval, of the ease of monitoring, and of course quality control. That is not there yet. We cannot celebrate any ministry yet at that point in time. And this is why we said it's not enough to put the torchlight or the searchlight on teachers and put the searchlight on buildings that are dilapidated and the likes. We need to look at the regulators as well. And I want to invite KK to share our own thoughts on the need, on the raising standards for regulators, and of course, specific areas where we will speak to regulators in terms of standards. So KK, over to you.
Okay, so I'm trying to catch on with the conversation, because when I heard raising standard for regulators, so in my head, what comes to me is in terms of regulating the work that schools are doing. But from what I can hear from the conversations and what I'm picking up on the comments, it seems it's totally different. We're not just looking at regulating what the schools are doing. We're also looking at regulating even from the very process of starting a school, running the school. We're looking at facilities as well. And of course, we're looking at academics. So it seems that we're looking at it holistically. Am I right?
So, yes and no. You're not wrong. We're looking at regulators as a whole. Regulators, we're talking about the ministries. We're talking about, so for example, national planning, NERDC, Ministry of Education, State Education Board, SUBEB,
right.
You're talking about even NECO, you're talking about WAEC, you're talking about all those who are in regulatory functions, right? And of course, drill it down their activities and functions as well.
Okay. The first thing is, before you regulate something, it means that there's a standard, right? So when you say raising standards for regulators, there needs to first of all be that benchmark that, okay, you know what, this is the base level in terms of standards. And then when we have that, we can then begin to build on it. Schools, for example, that have, so, I mean, you can have things like maybe classic schools, gold schools, silver schools, whatever it is. And then we begin to build standards so there's the basic level, and then there's level 1, there's level 2, there's level 3. And we can do that across private and public sectors. Now, one thing that I feel is really important is distributive leadership. And as Ugochi was talking about the fact that there is a dearth of even the regulators in terms of practice being on the field, you don't have the manpower to be in all the schools and in all the places that they need to be. So what we need to begin to look at when you talk about raising the standards for regulators is, can we have I'm trying to find the word, but distributive leadership kind of covers it, where you can't be everywhere, but you do have leaders in other sectors or in other places that can then function in the place of regulators. So it's almost like everybody doesn't have to be in Alausa and come from Alausa to come and regulate what's going on. And one thing we can use is what we talked about last week, the networks. So we have networks already that are in existence, which we can bring in as stakeholders into the regulatory commission, so to speak. And if these people know what they're looking out for, and we remove the bribery factor, then they would actually do a good job, because they know what is, truth be told. And because they know what it is in it for them. If the schools in my catchment area, for example, all move from maybe the base level is the wood level, and they're now on silver level, that's a good thing for me. So I, for example, as a regulator, would want to ensure that all of the schools in my sector, not just in terms of WAEC results, but in terms of their facilities, in terms of the quality of their teachers, in terms of their academics, are great. And so we can have standards across all these different areas and find a way to make them, benchmark them, so that everybody first of all can buy in. So it's not just one person saying this is the standard, but everybody coming together and having a conversation about what the standards should be and how we can actually begin to enforce these standards. And those people who don't have them, it's not a do or die affair. It's a, you don't have it now, what is your work plan? How do we move you to this place because you're not there yet? And if we begin to look at it like that, I truly believe that the work of the regulators, one, will be easier, two, will be more meaningful, and three, will become, the schools will generally be where they need to be. For example, I was hearing my students are doing NECO, right? And they got to NECO. First of all, they weren't meant to do French. They got there, it was French. The teacher, the French regulator came, the invigilator came without papers. And so they had to go home and come back the next day. I'm like, I don't understand. What's the plan for getting the papers? First of all, it wasn't what they were meant to be doing. And then the person eventually came and didn't even bring the tools. And they had to go the next day and it still didn't work out. You know, so all of those things are we need to begin to look at. But I don't believe that it should be one body looking at it, because I think it's too cumbersome. And what would happen is there'll be too much of dropping of the ball. There's too much juggling going on. Too much juggling going on. So if you have more people and we actually break them down into the little tiny units and have people spearheading these units, I think it will make for a more functional approach towards regulators.
Okay, so let me play the devil's advocate, right? In this scenario. So we know that we have the Ministry of Education, we know we have SUBEB, and of course you are aware that we have, at least in Lagos, 6 education districts, right? And even if you take it a step further to the local government, which is a little bit more closer to the grassroots, you know that even in the local government, you have some departments in the local government that has to do with education, because local government is also involved actively in education administration as well. So if you break it down all through the echelon, you find out that you still have some measure of close or front-end access to the regulators, because the local government, they are regulators. SUBEB, they are regulators. Of course, maybe a bit concentrated in one place, but then the education districts spread a bit across, right? So to tackle the argument or the case that you brought about distributive leadership, how do we excuse that against the word distributive leadership? That's number one. In fact, let me even ask you that. How do we use that as a case?
So that's the point, right? So we have all of this. It's almost like the hub and spoke model, right? Where we have the hub, which is the Ministry of Education, and then they have all these spokes, which are the 6 education districts. And then in the 6 education districts, you have the LGAs who are meant to be working. But the reality is that, are these spokes working? Do they even know what they're meant to be doing? And so what's happening is that you only have the hub that is doing most of the work. All the spokes are looking at is, let's go. Do you have this paper? Do you have this paper? Give me the money. Pay for radio license. Pay for this. And that's not all they should be doing, right? That's actually, when you talk about standards, whether I have a radio license or not, honestly, or a TV license, it's that part of what you should be looking at when you're thinking about standards. So we have it all skewed. So for me, when you look at the hub and spoke model, every hub has a spoke. That spoke potentially is another hub. So look at the education district. Take Etiosa, for example. We have, Etiosa has how many different local governments? Now, if you look at the Etiosa as one district, all those other LGAs then become your spokes. And then they begin to, we can then empower them transparently. Because what's happening is that there's no transparency regarding the standards. So when they even come to my school, I don't know what they're looking for. I don't even know that they're meant to come to my school. So there's nobody letting me know that, oh, somebody's coming to your school, even if they come unannounced, which is fine. But what exactly are you looking for when you come on unannounced visits? That way, I can be ready. And when I am ready, and I am always ready, every time you come, you would find that I am ready. And that already makes your job easier for you. So yes, Mr. Rotimi, when you look at that distributed model, just take it and superimpose it on the hub and spoke model. And let's use that as our benchmark when we think about empowering the regulators and getting them to actually do their jobs.
Fantastic, thank you. The word will now be, do we really want to get you ready? Because the truth about it is the juice of the matter is not getting you ready. The juice of the matter is catching you not being ready. and a lot of people are not looking at
It's
a
catching you so that you can pay.
Yeah, exactly.
Ugochi, your protesting voice is coming out small, small. Anyways, I didn't say anything. But I want us to really, I want us to, for those who are listening out there, a lot of them will share with our argument. But I think we need to also put some points out there so that in every form of agitation, in every form of advocacy, there is one element that we must not miss. That we must be able to carve and craft ideologies, right? Because not everybody understands the ideology of what we are trying to say. Raise standards for regulators. Why? What exactly do some people just believe, yeah, it's time for us to engage educators, it's time for us to engage regulators so that education will be better. But let them be schooled. Number one, how do we look at it in terms of the relevance and alignment of regulators vis-a-vis the calendar within education? So I'm sure that as you are a school owner, you have a school calendar, right? And we're all familiar with, especially if we were not before now, a lot of people were familiar with the school calendar, the dynamics of the school calendar during COVID, because third time or no third time became a conversation. And then beyond third time or no third time, and then nobody should resume, people should resume. So the calendar is quite instructive and is quite, how do I put it, obvious. Do you understand? But do we experience regulation in line with that calendar? So can we raise standards? And I'm going to bring this to Titi, being someone who is also experienced in this area of assessment, KPIs, scorecard, and all those things. First term right now that we are at, how do we raise standards for regulators? And we actually assess regulators, for example, those who have to do things with primary school and secondary school, can we actually have a scorecard for them termly? So first term, can we have a scorecard for the Commissioner of Education for first term? Not as opposed to 4 years in terms of political relevance, or not as opposed to political appointment. Can we score district education officers per term in line with the education calendar? And those of the tertiary institution, can we score them per semester? Because if there is a distance or gap or misalignment with the calendar, that they are also regulating the activities within that calendar, then the truth about it is we'll just be crying and wailing, and we'll not get to be able to see, because it's talk is cheap, like you said, are the spokes working? So Titi, over to you. How do we break an element? You said transparency. One of the ways we can also break transparency down can be in the calendar matrix.
Oh,
Titi, over
Ro-
to you.
Rotimi, I think if you even answered the question, you're so on point. Remember what I said. Two two things. The most important thing is transparency and leveraging technology for that. If you have registered schools, and there's a quarterly or termly portal where they can go and give their own feedback in terms of what the scorecard, the key performance indicators for the regulator is, and at the end of that thing, they can see their score. It will then move them from being that police that is looking to fault to co-partners in education, because your
Exactly.
success and my success are tied together. So instead of me trying to kill you, I'm looking for how to succeed, because when you succeed, you in
I
turn,
thought, yeah,
make me succeed. That's what it
that's
is.
exactly.
So we need to get to
Yeah.
that place. And that's why I said that for me, it's that transparency. Imagine if all the schools are registered, and then you in turn have a place where on a termly basis, one of your requirements as a school is to go and give feedback. So you go and give feedback and say, oh, how many visits? Maybe they're meant to have done one visit in the term. How many visits were done? You put how many this. Do you understand? You see that the regulator would then also be coming to you in a collaborative manner, because they realize that your success is their success. So they won't come and say, oh, it's things like that. And I think and immediately everybody can see the result, because it's a template that is, filled immediately. How many people responded? How many people filled the distribution of where all these people came from? That's why I said, in the end, the key for me, the key driver is this transparency. So even this registration that we are talking about, put it online. So you're interested in doing a school, it takes you to a particular level to when, and it then schedules you for when there's going to be that visit. So that it's very clear. It's like when you can apply for US embassy visa, you will see dates
Visa.
and then you select a date. So it did not say, oh, when do you want your school whatever. It will show you the available dates and you select a date. So we really need to get to that level. That I can't say that more. We need to get to that level of transparency in everything we do that drives accountability, leveraging technology.
Fantastic. I like that because also it was in 2015 during the NESG summit when we were talking about the ease of doing business, where it was broken down again that there's a need for almost, the way you will have a mall like a Palms, like an Ikeja City Mall, where you have a front desk of these agencies. Take, for example, Ministry of Education or the Department of Private Education. You have a front desk, something like the way you have Airtel, MTN offices, friendship and experience centers. You have them there. And then it's not just constricted in one building, that you can actually go from one office to the other office and start and finish your processes straight up, you know a lot of people will be able to come into the country. A lot of people will be able to come into education and understand that. Look at it. For example, you want to start an institute, you want to start an academy, which is not a school. You want to set up a finishing school, which is not really a conventional formal school. The reason why those things are missing and dying is because there's nobody to even give you the basic requirements, because it's not in the consciousness of what they do. In fact, some people tell it's impossible. So you need to go to CAC, and CAC will bring you back to the Ministry of Education. And then it's on that basis who you know and how you are able to trouble, and how you're able to follow up. They will now make a case for you, or probably say, you know what, you've not done this for too many years. So we can't call you an expert for you to have a right, because it is not in the convention. And like I normally tell people, the problem of education is the things that are missing, not just the things that are broken. So Gocha, I'm going to bring this question back to you on this same conversation of raising standards for regulators, raising standards for regulators. I want us to look at the issue. I'm sure you grew up hearing this, and guess what is still happening? So sad. The issue of places like organizations and regulators like WAEC, like NECO, and the likes. A part of the services that they offer, or a part of the function of what they do, people pay for it as a service. So I'm sure most people will register to write the exam, or some people were paid or sponsored to write exams. However, when it comes to the issue of results, you hear about results being withheld. You hear about results being this, being that. You understand what I'm trying to say? And it's kind of
Yes.
it's kind of heartbreaking, because when you hear about all these things, results being withheld, somebody's writing in the dailies, why I release my paper, I can't find my result, or so many things. I've had funny experiences from there. How do we juxtapose that? Because the truth about it is, we can also come up with the conspiracy theory that it's a sales mechanism for people to keep on coming back, because we have a huge amount of returning students writing these terminal exams year in, year out. How do we get to audit WAEC? How do we get to audit NECO? How can we get to audit these ministries and get them to be responsible, to understand that for an exam, I must get the results. If I pass or fail, that's not the case. You can't explain it that scripts are missing for something someone has paid for. Will I walk into Mr. Biggs, or will I walk into Tantalizers and pay for food and they say my plate of food is missing? It doesn't make sense. What do you think about that?
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. Okay, but I totally understand what you mean, because the truth is, it's unfair. It's unfair, most especially when you hear stories of same candidates who keep experiencing the same thing over and over again. And you see, this is where accountability and transparency comes in. And that is part of the things that is being talked about in this NSAS movement. The fact that we need to strengthen our institutions, the fact that all our institutions need to be seen being open and transparent in how, because if you are running something that is for a country, you're doing something that is serving people of a country, you must be accountable to those people. right? So everything, we shouldn't be hearing cases of scripts getting missing. Wait, it's only in Nigeria that things like this happen. Snake eats money, monkey carries money, scripts get missing, and we don't get to the bottom of it. These are things that should be audited, and we have organizations that do auditing that are trusted. Why don't we bring them into work, so into the work of the government is, the work that various organizations are doing? Why do we keep leaving them to only handle private sector things? No, it shouldn't be. So we need that open accountability. WAEC should be audited, the activity should be audited, because the truth is, what I have found is, when people are sure, when they have seen clearly that their actions are going to be x-rayed and the results are going to be open to the public, it makes them more careful. But when they can see that nothing happens, and even when it happens, there are no repercussions, there is no consequence, they keep doing as they please. So it is very important that, aside the fact that we want auditing to happen and all that, it must be followed through till the end, because we don't have a good finishing culture. Many times we have all the nice policies, implementation becomes a problem. Many times we have the compliance in place, monitoring in details across all area becomes a problem. So we need to have a finishing culture, a good finishing culture also, as we advocate for auditing, accountability, and transparency.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to bring this last question to everybody, but I'm going to start with KK. I'll move over to Titi, and then, of course, back to you, Gucci. And I'd like us to try to do that in a very short amount of time. Now, the issue of transparency, thankfully, Titi has given us one big blanket answer that really everything is beginning to fall in place. But I want us to talk about functional policies, because one of the ways to raise standards is to look not just at policy, because Nigeria is blessed with policies across several sectors. Can we look at the functionality of these policies? And can we look at the policies designed to automatically favor us within and around the world of education? And I want us to bring this question straight to KK. Why am I saying this? There are policies about schools, about buildings of schools. There are policies about curriculum. There are policies about dressing. And there are policies about a lot of things. Policies about uniforms, functional policies. Really, I feel like protesting this morning. So what do we do in the area of pushing functional policies? For example, I'm looking forward to a day where our uniforms will not look like the British. Our uniforms will reflect that we are from the tropics. Our uniform will reflect that we are African, and we are African teachers. We are African students. Those kind of functional policies, our timetable, our timing for school, the functional policies. So, KK, please, over to you as we bring this to close.
Okay, so when we talk about functionality is tied to the people who are using it, right? So if you think about functional policies, obviously, like everybody has said, Titi, Ugochi, that openness and that collaborative setting where everybody comes to the table and I can actually have a conversation about what should these policies be, and all of the stakeholders are actually engaged, either via their representatives or via technology, where everybody can actually make their voices heard based on each policy. And that's the only way they can be functional. And then when you talk about functionality, you're still going to have like a benchmark or a cutoff point, because everybody has an idea or has something to say about something, but there's no way you can take everybody's word and implement it. So we're still going to have to say, the regulators are still going to have to say, okay, we've heard from all of these people, so let's then bring out something that works, and then maybe have 3 or 4 different things. Maybe, for example, let's look at curriculum and say, okay, which curriculum, what should we do for curriculum, and everybody then has their say. Curriculum is actually too big to use. Let's use uniform, because when you think about curriculum, gosh, that's like huge, just like huge. Yes, the elephant in the room. So let's look at uniform, right? I mean, each school has their own uniform. So if you want us to have a certain type of look, then where does individuality come in? So when you talk about functionality, Rotimi, so we're just not ready for some things yet, in my own opinion. However, for me, I say, what are the things that are actually dividing the sector? What should we be looking at is my first question. And, For me, curriculum is a big deal, and finance is a big deal. Teacher quality is a big deal. Facilities are a big deal. So all of those things are what I will be looking at when you talk about functionality. And let's have a conversation around this four. When we can get this four right, I believe that the standards will be really high already. Just one of these things. Let's even address financing. Already that opens up so many things that people can plug into when we have the right policies regarding financing for the education sector. So yeah, there definitely has to be a format or a formal way people can sit down and just have a conversation around these areas, make their views heard, and then we can take it off from there. But if you're creating something for me, I will only see it as functionality if it works for me, right? It may not work 100%, but at least 60% should work for me. So yeah, in terms of functionality, we all need to come to the table and have a discussion about it.
All right, thank you. So Titi, very quickly, functional policies by regulators.
Okay, what I would say, I think KK has said it. When we look at functional, let it be driven by need, because when you have a place where you have 1,000,001 problems, you have to prioritize. So when we look at functional property, I would say if you draw it's true now, if you do a long list, which ones are the top, so maybe we start with the top 5 that have the greatest impact, and then use that to drive functionality. That's what I would say, because there's a lot. Do you understand? And life is thought that they will continue to be. So it's really to say what are the top ones that I can that we will do that will have the most impact, and then you also look for low hanging fruits. Things that, right, there's some things I can choose that will have the most impact, but they'll take a long time to implement. You have to look for low hanging fruits that starts giving little bit of victories, because not everybody has the patience to wait for how it is 4 years before you see the fruit of your labor. So you always have to look for a mix of the things with the greatest impact, as well as the things that are quick wins, low hanging fruits. So that's what I would say in response to that.
Fantastic.
Okay, so continuing on what Mr. Jaya and Mr. Deusi have said, I'll just say that data drives decisions, and we can't just make policies in a vacuum. Data drives decisions. And then, of course, just again to reiterate what Mr. Deusi mentioned, the fact that we should be able to split this into short-term, mid-term, and long-term, because it helps. It boosts confidence when people can see some quick wins. It shows that you're actually making some movement in the direction of what they want. So it gives them hope that, okay, if we can already see this, then the mid-term one would come and the long-term one would come. So that's what I have to say.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So those of us listening and those who will be watching and replaying this video, you need to understand all that we've been trying to say is that there's need for us to raise standards. Standards do not fall. Standards can be raised. People measure up against standards. And it's time for our regulators to also be called to question. And we believe that once this happens, we will begin to witness a lot of phenomenal changes. And one thing I'd like to say as we bring this to a close is that regulators cannot drive everything. Regulators can drive, but then as regulators, they are meant to enable. And so administrators must be able to envision under the regulation of regulators, the vision for the sector. And once that comes out, agendas can be expressed. There are many low-hanging fruits that regulators themselves cannot create. It will be the administrators, people like KK, people like district education officers that would say, under this district, this is our vision for education. And then they drive that. And then once they do that, they're able to plummet growth. And then everybody at the end of the day will begin to attribute that. And that's why there's a need for scorecard. Because when they understand that this is a benchmark that will be measured per term, then they will race against time. I believe that these and many more are things that we may need to talk about. So it's been a great time today. We've had a great conversation. I'm going to still go back to our analysts to just give one word, one parting word or one parting shot as we end this conversation. Remember, we're coming back tomorrow and we're taking a step further on this conversation. Trust me, something is about to happen. AK, last words, please. KK, you're on mute.
It's my turn today. So the reality is, like, I'm just going to take what you said, Rotimi, that people measure up against standards. So if there's no standards, then there's nothing for anybody to measure up. And if those standards are not transparent as well, and they have not been created with my input, then I don't see why I should buy into it. Right? So yes, let's get people's buy-in. Let's make it as transparent as it possibly can. But let's uphold those standards so that people can begin to measure up against them. And then we can begin to see the sector that we truly want to see. Thank you.
All right. Go to your last words.
Okay, if we do not have effective standards and effective systems of implementing them, our education sector is not going to grow as it should. So we need to have effective standards and good methods of implementation. We must have a good finishing culture.
All right. And Dr. Titi.
Transparency, transparency, transparency. That's my final word.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't be surprised if 2022, 2023, you see Titi's face on a poster. And of course,
Yes.
Transparency
Transparency,
2023. Yeah. Oh, shit.
I'll vote for you.
Safety giant. Oh, shit.
oh, shit.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've had a great time today. We thank you for joining us. Thank you for connecting with us.
Bye,
And we believe that you
everyone.
translate all that we've heard and all that we've said into actionable steps, actionable growth. And of course, if you're a regulator out there, regulate yourself. It's time to step up the game because they are coming for you. They're coming for you, like they normally will say. And it's time for you to buckle up, right? I believe that the education that we have today is meant to be designed to empower us, not just empower the West. And it's time for us to do that. So this is our time. And on the Good Morning Education Show, we wish you all a great day because on the Good Morning Education Show, it's always a great day.
A great morning.
Bye.
Bye.